Good morning. Right, another customer service type video this one, inspired by the cake groups yet again, which I love. I love the Facebook cake groups. I think they're an amazing source of support for us all. But again, bad information being spread and everyone's defending each other, which is a wonderful thing because, some customers are ourselves. But I think 3 times this week I've seen this issue where a 3-tier cake has collapsed and everyone's jumping in that it's the customer's responsibility once it's in their hands. A couple of times I think I've seen cakes have been delivered to a customer's house and then the customers travelled for an hour, for 30 miles, for 3 hours to the venue with them. The cake's collapsed. I don't like this thing about once it's left your hands, it's not your responsibility anymore. Our responsibility, we need to put into play what we need to do before that cake gets driven for a mile by someone who hasn't got experience driving cakes for that long. A mile, I said a mile, I meant an hour. There's been times when the cake in the cake maker's photo has been a bit bulgy and a bit wonky. So it's obvious there was problems before it left their hands, right? We need to take responsibility for that. I'm not here to mollycoddle you, right? I want you to be the absolute best at what you are doing. And we're never going to do that if we're not going to take responsibilities when we F up, right? It's a nightmare for us as well, right? We, as cake makers, we don't want this to happen. But if we're immediately going to go on the defensive and say that it's not their fault, the customer should have told you that they were driving for 3 hours with it, we need to know that beforehand, right? So I'm going to tell you off here, right? If we worked for someone else and we were given this job as to do something that was such an important part of someone's special life event, right? No employer is going to give us that job if we haven't got the proper training to do it properly. So why are we doing this as self-employed people? Learn how to do this stuff way in advance. How can we stop this crap from happening, right? First of all, the first thing I'd recommend doing, the first 3, 4, 5, 10 3-tier cakes that you make, do them for friends and family. You shouldn't be learning new skills on a client's cake, right? It's not fair to them and it's very stressful for us as well. You need to learn how to dowel and stack a cake properly. Myself, my first ever 5-tier wedding cake, I didn't dowel and I set it up, stacked them one on top of the other in a marquee on a wobbly table, right? Luckily for me, extremely luckily for me, the cake was fine. They had fruit cake and banana cake and carrot cake, so they were quite sturdy in the bottom tiers, so I got away with that. Those people are still my clients to this day, which I'm very happy about, but that could have gone terribly wrong, right? So to dowel and stack your cake, make sure all of your dowels are the same length. If one of them is a couple of millimetres out, if it's one of them that's not doing the job, if 2 are out, especially if they're together, that cake's going to tilt. If 2 are out that are opposite each other, it's going to wobble, right? So make sure they're all exactly the same length and use proper cake dowels. Don't use drinking straws. Don't use barbecue meat skewers. They're not built for that purpose, right? So use your proper dowels. Make sure that in between your layers, you have glued these cakes together with royal icing and leave that to set overnight. I wouldn't even transport a cake myself that was glued together with royal icing unless it had been left to set overnight. It's got to be hard. Something else, you need to give clear written instructions before the client picks up. Don't give them a leaflet as you're passing them the cake for them to just drop that leaflet in the car boot and then read when they got home after they've travelled with it. It's not enough. It's our responsibility. We're the cake experts. Our customers don't know how fragile cakes can be. They're paying us to do a job. We are the experts here. So before they collect the cake, make sure they know how they've got to transport it. Also, as you're giving them it, they're probably flapping. They've got all 101 jobs to do for this event that they're taking the cake to. Tell them verbally at the door. Watch them put it in the car or put it in the car yourself. Make sure it's on a non-slip mat. Make sure that it's, nothing's going to fall on it, or take responsibility. What else did I write? Be aware of how your sponges and your fillings behave once the temperature gets into the mid-20s. If you've got soft fillings, if your sponges are soft, the dowels are going to move, the cake's going to sink. If we've got, strawberries, raspberries, that stuff isn't going to happen in your cool room at your house where you've been keeping this cake for the customer to collect. It's going to happen in transit, right? Again, it's our responsibility to make sure that that cake is firm enough to travel. Every journey has got bumps in the road. Even with the most careful of drivers, there'll be slight inclines and things like that. So the cake's got to withstand that. If you're nervous about delivering this cake, ask yourself why. If you're too nervous to deliver it because you're scared it's going to collapse, there's obviously something not right. You know that there's a good chance it's going to collapse, right? Be responsible, right? So it's our job to ask where it's going before we take the order. We need to make it very clear to the client that cakes do not travel well, right? Especially in summer when it's hot. It's our job to deliver those cakes. I won't take a cake order on that's for 3 tiers or more unless I know I can deliver it myself. It frightens me just too much. If they've said to you, drop it at our house because we're then going somewhere, you can turn the order down. Please turn the order down. You know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. With the best of intentions, they're not going to drive with the same care that we would drive with it. Right. It's not just enough to say it's your responsibility once it's left my hands, right? That is not enough. It's still you that's going to take the flak. If that cake collapses, it's still you that's going to get the blame for it. So it's a rough one, this, isn't it? I feel like I'm being right stern with everyone all. But right, if a cake collapses when we know we haven't taken every single one of these measures, right? Learn how to stack a cake properly. Stack a cake properly. Deliver big cakes yourself. Make sure we know where the cake is going to end up. Give clear written instructions for transportation. Then again, give clear verbal instructions when they collect it from you. Make sure our fillings are stable. Everything that's in our power. If we've done all of that, then we have a clear conscience. If we haven't taken all of those steps, none of this 50% refund crap, right? If we haven't done everything in our power to make sure that cake's sturdy, it's our fault if it collapses. It's not the customer's fault. If we haven't doweled it properly, if we haven't glued it together properly, if we haven't made sure that this cake is sturdy, it is our fault if it collapses, and we have to take responsibility for that. And it's no good saying, well, they drove it, so it's half of their fault. We can't imagine how that customer feels. You're not going to excel if you don't take responsibility, right? So sometimes it's genuinely not our fault, but as long as we have taken every measure to make sure this cake is sturdy, then our conscience are clear. Our consciences are clear at least. Okay, the time's running out. Look after your customers.